So hello, I'm Tanuja Kopal. I'm a scientist, but now I do mostly writing, conference organization, webinar moderation, and I think this is more fun. Today, I'm super excited to be talking to Dr. Petrina Kamya, who is the head of AI platforms, and she's also president of InSilico Medicine in Canada. So I am going to be talking to her about the work that she's going to discuss at our upcoming Drug Discovery Chemistry Conference in San Diego, which is coming up in April. And she's actually going to be giving a talk in the AI for early drug discovery. So I decided to, talk to Petrina about her work, but then I figured that it'd be more interesting for us all to learn a little bit about how she got to where she is today. So I'm super happy, Petrina, that you're here and we are talking about this. So before we get into your work, could you give us a little sneak peek into how you got interested in chemistry, particularly computational chemistry? Because you realize, right, that as a woman and in the AI field, that's super rare. So I would definitely be interested in knowing about what got you to, start working in AI.
Thank you, Tanuja, for your kind words, your introduction, and for the opportunity to speak with you today. It's a great honor. So your question, how did I get into chemistry and computational chemistry? It's pretty straightforward and kind of boring, actually. I mean, I'll start with chemistry. As a child, I wasn't really interested specifically in chemistry. I was just a curious child and interested in science in general. And my interest in chemistry sort of came about when I started taking organic chemistry. This was right after high school. And I understood how implicated in our day-to-day life organic chemistry is. Like, for example, if you think of cloves or nutmeg, these are two very different fragrant spices. The difference, the molecule that's responsible for this fragrance is the same, essentially, in both cloves and in nutmeg. The only difference is in the position of a double bond. And that, to me, I found very fascinating when you realize that it's all down to chemistry, from spices to the soap that we use. If you want to understand how detergents work, that's all molecules. And that's what got me interested in chemistry. But I'm very, very clumsy. And I actually don't like following recipes, and that's not very good for a chemist. And I got to learn about the virtual world and building models and molecular modeling while I was in university. And that was definitely more my type of chemistry, because I couldn't blow anything up. I couldn't break anything in the lab or burn anything when I'm sat in front of a laptop. And I'm still doing chemistry, but it's just in a more safer environment. So that's how I got into computational chemistry.
How cool. So can I ask you, where did you do your undergrad and your graduate work? And, what was it like? Did you have a lot of women, chemists around you? Because the reason why I'm asking is we actually have a session at Drug Discovery Chemistry on just like women in chemistry and talking about the challenges, that they face and so on. So it would be interesting for you to be a part of that discussion too. But yeah, I'm just curious to hear, your experience being a woman chemist.
Yeah, so I did all of my higher level education in Montreal, Canada. And interestingly, it was my supervisor for my grad studies is a woman. Her name is Dr. Mukhal. She's at Concordia University. And I've been surrounded by female scientists. There's another female professor at Concordia University that was a big influence in my decision to stay in chemistry, and her name is Dr. DeWolf. So for me, and there were young professors at the time, and at Concordia University, the departments of biochemistry and chemistry are in one. So there was a lot of cross-contamination between biochemistry and chemistry. They weren't isolated faculties, which I think helped a lot. So there were always female scientists around. So it made for a pretty diverse
That's great.
high-level education.
Yeah. So did you have to do a lot? Because when people think computational, immediately they think, oh, I have to do so many math courses and coding courses and, all that. So did you have to do a lot of other courses besides your traditional chemistry that you did?
No, you do. So, I mean, you have to take physics, I did quantum chemistry, but no coding. Back in the day, coding was not an essential part of being a computational chemist. It's sort of something that people would do on the side. But the level of math that you take to get into university is that's more than enough. You go all the way up to calculus 3, I believe, or 4. It's nothing beyond what you typically take as a scientist
That would be a relief for many people to hear. So yeah, then tell me about your journey. How did you end up at InSilico Medicine?
Yeah, okay. So out of grad school, I worked for about 7.5 or 8 years at Chemical Computing Group. This is a company that's headquartered in Montreal. They develop molecular modeling software for the life sciences industry. And I had several different roles in that company, starting off on the academic side, so building out the academic side of the business. And then I moved more into working on projects with our industrial clients, training them on how to use the software, and then managing the end-to-end business sales, basically, cycle for our clients. Following that, I spent a bit of time at Certara in market access. That's the other end of the value chain of drug discovery and development. I wanted to understand what happened, how you could actually get these drugs to patients. And there are a lot of different processes involved with getting those drugs to the market and commercializing them. You basically have to build a sort of like a case study to showcase why this drug is better than the standard treatment of care and how it's going to address the unmet need of the population, which is very, very interesting. You learn about epidemiology, health economics, and outcomes research. Very cool. And then, the pandemic hit, and for a while, I was doing a little bit of consulting for the management consulting and investment community that was very interested in understanding where the computer-aided drug discovery and design space was going in the future, and how AI would be implicated in that journey. So I was doing a lot of research and doing a lot of interviews with these investment banks. And that led me somehow serendipitously to Alex. And he contacted me via LinkedIn and said, I think I have a very interesting position for you at InSilico Medicine. But it wasn't a very standard interview process. He just invited me to the launch of one of the software tools, Chemistry 42 webinar, because at the time it was the pandemic, everything was virtual. And I got to learn about the software and the work that went into them building the software. And because I had that background of researching where AI was going in drug discovery and development space, I was listening with a very keen eye to understand how they were addressing the challenges and what, the process that they went through to build this platform. And I was very, very impressed. So following the webinar, we had sort of like an informal chat. And he basically just offered me a position at InSilico Medicine, and I took it. I saw the potential. I saw the level of innovation that this company has, and the fast pace that it moves in. And I just thought it would be a great fit for myself, for my ambition, and for where I thought that the industry was going. And I've been at InSilico Medicine for 2.5 years since that time.
Fascinating journey. And looks like you have analyze different aspects of it, right? Which is very cool. It's not like you were a scientist, you stayed in the lab. You have now that vision from the marketing, from the commercial perspective. And yes, you're right. I mean, this field is moving at such a fast pace. You have to be on a train that is fast moving. Otherwise, you will sort of, miss all the excitement. So in your mind, where is this field heading? I'm sure all of us want to know, like,
I wish I could predict that. I mean, I think, the power of AI in drug discovery and development is in taking multidimensional data and narrowing down the dimensionality in a way that we can sort of start to understand the connections between diseases and genes and targets, and begin to design more intelligently molecules that satisfy different parameters. So big data or large, vast amounts of data and filtering it down so that we can make decisions using that data, data-driven decisions, basically, regarding which targets to go after, which molecules we should synthesize, how to best optimize these molecules in a way that will save us time and money. That is already being done, being realized. And I think it's just going to go off on a larger scale. It's going to be more and more adopted. It's going to make a difference, I believe, to the industry. The more players take on and adopt this type of technology into their day-to-day workflows. I don't know exactly what is going to happen, but I just know that it is going to have an impact on the industry for sure. And it is already, yeah.
Yeah, it is already, but there are still so many skeptics out there. I think there's going to be like this little, like a little turning point almost, right? Where even the skeptics are like, oh yeah, you know what? I can take this to a certain level, and then I still have to do validation, etc. In a wet lab, what have you. But yes, there is potential. Yes, I can see us using it. So what do you think that turning point is? Do you think it is targets that move all the way through the clinic and then actually, prove what in your mind has to happen for that turning point to be reached?
I think people have to be a little bit realistic in terms of the expectations that they have. I think, AI is going to make an impact for sure. It's not going to take over everything. I don't believe that that's necessarily what's going to happen, but it's going to make an impact, a big enough impact that there's no way anyone can deny that it's made an impact. And I think that impact will likely come when we have drugs that have been approved. And that are on the market. And the process that it took to get that drug to market was faster and more efficient than the status quo. So with each step, with each achievement that we make in terms of getting closer to that goal of getting a drug to market, I think there are fewer and fewer skeptics because you can't argue with a fact. Yes. Now, that's not to say that we are going to be successful. There are very, very few programs so far that are out there that have made it to the clinic. What are the odds that they're all going to make it to market? It looks to be pretty low based on historical, evidence. But that's why I think, ourselves and others in the field celebrate every single milestone, because each milestone is something to be celebrated. And if we don't get to the end, it's okay. As we got this far with the technology that we're using, and we're going to keep trying. And I think that when that day comes that we have a marketed drug, or at least an approved, FDA-approved drug that came from platforms that leverage AI, there's no denying the fact that that is possible. Yeah,
I agree. I think, and people should be willing to share stuff. I also believe that. And, conferences are actually a good way where people come together and talk about stuff, but they should be willing to share things, what worked and what didn't work. Mm-hmm. I think that is, sometimes I find that a little frustrating, where people, even if it worked, they don't want to share because they feel like now, they have this intellectual property that they need to protect. But if it didn't work as well, they are not willing to share. And I don't see that. But, hopefully things will change and people will get a little bit more open about things. That's my hope. So tell me about some of the interesting projects that you're working at at InSilico.
There are so many. there are literally so many. Well, one that comes to the top of my mind, because we've spoken about, women in science and minorities, is the work that we're doing with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Okay. Here we are leveraging one of our platforms, Chemistry 42, to help design non-hormonal contraceptives. These are contraceptives, hopefully, that will work for females and for males. So we're working on a number of different targets and trying to design these molecules that would work for either males or females and help them control or have a modicum of control over their fertility in a non-hormonal way. And we're one of many different companies working towards this very lofty ambition. And, some might say, well, why are you working with companies that would otherwise be considered your competitors in this space on the same projects, maybe even sometimes on the same targets? And the answer is very simple. I don't think that the outcome from this collaboration will come up with one molecule or, one series of molecules that will work. Contraception is something that is very delicate. People have different needs and different access to different access is an issue, right? Let's just leave it at that. And so, the type of molecule that I may come up with using our platforms may be something that is orally bioavailable or something that would be in the form of a pill. That might not work for everyone around the world. So the main goal of this grand challenge, is to provide women and men with accessible types of non-hormonal contraception. So there's some that are going to be topical. There's some that are going to be injectable. There are many different needs around the world for women and men. And so we're trying to come up with as many different modes of action and many different ways of delivering these non-hormonal contraceptions. So that to me is very, very exciting because it's a multifaceted challenge. And we have the opportunity to use our platforms to make a big difference to something that maybe some people consider is not a challenge, but it actually really, really is. And it's for people all around the world. So that's one of the projects that we're working on that's very exciting. Another sort of project or something that I can talk on a high level is just being able to leverage all of our platforms towards making the whole system more intelligent and also including robotics. And this is something or a case study that I plan on talking about at the drug discovery conference that we're going to be in San Diego. I'm not going to tell you details, but I'm going to try and show how we leverage all three of our platforms and include robotics into the whole cycle of learning and developing and optimizing the whole process.
Drug discovery. I think robotics is key, isn't it? Particularly with AI, since you're synthesizing so many compounds virtually, at some point you have to start testing it, so having the robotics automation component makes it easier in some ways to validate what you're seeing and then funnel it back into the model to make it more richer and more meaningful, I guess.
That is correct. Yep. So that cycle, that active learning cycle, we have adapted for target identification and validation. In terms of chemistry, we always validate the molecules that come out of the platform. We synthesize and we test them. Some work, some don't. And from those that do work, we optimize. It's important to understand, though, that the molecules that come out of our platforms that we end up moving forward don't necessarily look like aliens. They have to look drug-like, and they have to be patentable. And you have to be able to make them easily and fast. So they tend to be very simple molecules, nothing out of the ordinary. But we validate them as well. We make them and we test them. And all of that is part of the active learning loop.
Although now with the whole beyond rule of 5, you can have these alien drug molecules. I mean, some of the molecules that I'm looking at in the protein degradation space, PROTACs and all these like fancy linkers and warheads, like where is the drug-like nature of these molecules? So but keeping it simple is always easy.
I mean, there are definitely interesting modalities, but they have to still be drug-like. Maybe not necessarily adhering strictly to the rule of 5, but they can't be something. I mean, generative algorithms, generative AI can really generate some molecules that are completely bananas that no one will be able to synthesize. But that's that's cool, but you need to be able to make these molecules. And that was initially a challenge actually for us and for many people in the field who were using generative AI to imagine molecules. No one could make them. So we had to sort of build in a structure or a process that would help those generative algorithms learn to make simpler molecules or molecules that are drug-like and that can actually be made in the lab.
That's good. That's great. You have to bring some practical aspect to it, and with your, commercial eye towards, at the end of the day, this has to be marketed. So Yeah. But yeah, thanks for sharing the work that you're doing on the reproductive side of things. I think that's really cool because that, translates across so many different age groups, so many cultures, and actually so many price points too. Like a lot of countries, I mean, I come from India, and I know that in rural India, there's, of course, there's a mindset, there is a certain stigma, but there's also just plain economics. Like, you cannot afford to spend so much money on contraception. So if there's a collaborative work going on where people are coming together to make this more affordable, practical, accessible, that's wonderful. That's really
it's actually part of our contract. The molecules, if they were to ever move forward and become commercially viable, we have to make them accessible. It's part of our contract. As part of being part of this challenge, this grand challenge, we cannot make them inaccessible.
Yeah, if they have to be stored in like liquid nitrogen and like freezers and then transport, it's not happening. So,
but this also for the price, right? And also even for the modality, right? So they have groups of social scientists talking to women all over the world in different cultures and trying to understand for them what the best modality would be based on their situation. Like, there's some women, for example, who would never tell their husbands or their partners that they are on contraception. So they have to be able to take it in a secretive way and not every day. And so that's something that has to be taken into consideration when we're designing the molecules. So we're taking, like I may or may not have said this, a multifaceted approach towards this challenge, knowing that there are many different ideal situations for women. We have to bear that in mind when we're designing the molecules.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, that's great that you're also taking into account the social aspects of things.
Yeah.
That's sometimes when you're making drugs, you're just focused on PKPD talks. We don't take into account all these cultural barriers that come into play when you actually have to take a drug. That's amazing. So yeah, you gave us a little sneak peek into what you're going to be talking about in San Diego. So that's great. And then I'm also glad that you're going to be presenting some of your work in the generative and predictive AI short course. I think the short courses are designed to be more interactive, more informative. So it would be great for people to just, brainstorm a little bit, talk about some of the issues that they may be running into, and then you can, share your perspective. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and also sort of de-black box it all. A lot of people have an impression of what AI is, and to be honest, it's really quite simple. And there's nothing super crazy about it being black box if certain aspects of it are black box. And there's a lot of human input in terms of the decisions that are made. And I would really like for people to understand that. And to understand that it's not that complex. It's not, I don't have a background in AI and machine learning. I'm a computational chemist, like a lot of the people who would be using the tools, are. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Listening to how the other presenters present this type of technology, and also, trying to simplify it as much as possible so that more people understand it.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that you don't have that traditional like AI machine. I thought somehow that you would tell me, I have like done so much coding and I have done this physics and I have done all this stuff, but that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. So what do you see as the future of like women in this field? Because when I started organizing specifically the AI for drug discovery conferences pre-pandemic, it was actually refreshing. I used to approach men who are in the field and they would make an effort to ask me, how many women speakers do you have on the program? We would love to share the stage with other, women who are in this field. So that kind of opened my eyes to realizing that there aren't many women, and why is that? How can we change it? And, where do you see women really making a difference here?
I think what you're doing is exactly what needs to be done. If we see more, not just women, but just minorities in general, being showcased at high profile events, or, then that will help change the status quo. and allow people in the audience, so young people in the audience, young scientists, to either see someone who they can relate to and be inspired by, or just understand that, okay, they're women, they're handicapped people or disabled people, or just minorities up on the stage and talking, and for that to become the norm. I absolutely detest stereotypes, and I would prefer that people grow up understanding that it's not weird to see a woman on the stage, or it's not weird to see a minority. It is just what it is. And I think that by having more representation of minorities at high profile events, that hopefully the stereotypes and the status quo will slowly be dissolved. And it's if you're good and if you're able to express yourself and you're a leader in the space, then you should be on the stage, regardless of what you look like or who you are. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Yeah, so let's do this together, because I really feel passionately about that as well. That people should be recognized for what they bring, and not who they are, what they look like. And and particularly being a woman myself, I think that I might be slightly biased, but I would like to see women more in STEM fields, right? Engineering, I mean, they should at least give it a try. Like, they should not think, like you said, right? You are trying to de-black box. What was the word that you used?
De-black box.
Yeah, de-black box it, because sometimes it's not as complicated. You just have it in your mind that, oh my God, this is super difficult, or there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And if we can, get to them early on in their careers, maybe starting like as early as middle school, high school, saying, hey, chemistry is not that tough. You just have to apply your mind to it just like anything else. And then, slowly they'll get more confident, and hopefully we'll see them on stage, talking about their work and sharing their experiences. So, yeah, but thank you so much for your time. Good luck with everything that you're doing. I think, just hearing about some of the projects, I'm just very, very happy to see where AI can really make an impact. And as you said, it's just a faster, cheaper way to get to the, the fail fast, fail early kind of issue as well, right? So that's awesome. Any last words, thoughts, advice?
Well, you know what? I would say this. There's no straight path towards anything. I am here working at an AI for drug discovery company. And the way I got here was not straightforward. And I don't think, there is a straight path. As you're growing, there are different aspects or attributes of your life, or experiences that you'll have that are there for a reason. And it will all fall into place eventually. So don't beat yourself up if you started off maybe in engineering, and then you switch to marketing, and then, just follow the path, follow your path, follow your passions, keep learning, and eventually things will fall into place. And every little step that you've taken to get to wherever you are going means something. And it's important. The path is never, ever straight, is all I want to say.
Yeah, just keep an open mind, right? Don't overthink, don't overanalyze, just trust, believe. Yeah, this is great. So thank you again for your time. I can't wait to see you in San Diego in a few weeks. The event actually starts April 10th, and we'll be there till April 13th. AI is just one part of the big discussion. There are many other really interesting topics specifically around chemistry that will be discussed. And as I mentioned, we have a breakfast on women in chemistry. So if you have the time, or if you're there during that time, would love to have you join and again be a part of the discussion. I would call it be a part of the movement, just towards openness and collaboration. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Again so much.
Thank you so much, Tanuja. This has been a ton of fun.